Good evening and welcome to the CMM virtual banquet. My name is Max Bunch, and over the next 30 minutes, we're going to give you an insightful look into the strategic ministry of the Center for Mission Mobilization, or as we refer to it, the CMM. I have the privilege to serve on the CMM board, and I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to be your introductory guide to this vital ministry. As an outline, you'll hear from our Executive Director, Dave Rothkar, on the essentials of the CMM. You'll also hear a report from our staff in Asia describing mobilization efforts there. You'll hear from another one of our great board members as to why the CMM matters to them. And finally, we'll give you an opportunity to prayerfully consider how to partner with the CMM in its strategic ministry to take the gospel to the unreached around the world. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Dave Rothkar, the Executive Director of CMM. Dave, take it away.
Thank you, Max. And good evening, everyone. You know, today in the world, there are roughly 3 billion people who have no access to the gospel. There's no church anywhere near them. They don't know any Christians. They don't know anyone who knows any Christians. In order for the gospel to reach them, someone has to cross a boundary of language, culture, or understanding and enter into their world. Now, several years ago, my wife and I did just that. We crossed an ocean to the other side of the planet with our 2 young boys and made our best effort to learn the local language, live life among the unreached, and sought to be a witness for Christ. And of course, since I'm 6'5" and such a small guy, we blended right into the culture. Well, not exactly. But what if there were a better way? What if there were Christians nearby who already knew a similar language to the unreached or lived in a similar culture to them? The good news is that there are. Today, 80% of the evangelical believers in the world live in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, and are near neighbors to the unreached, or can more easily have access to them. However, the churches there only send 20% of the world's missionaries. The CMM exists to see this statistic flipped on its head. We deploy our staff and resources to flip the script. We exist to mobilize the global church primarily in Asia, Africa, and Latin America to send their own missionaries to the unreached. Now you can see on the map here where we deploy our staff and resources targeting 50 countries where there are 1 million or more Christians, the green, in order to move them to the missions among the unreached, the red. Our passion is to move the church to mission from the green to the red. And what you can note from this map is also there are areas that are striped. This means the country has a mix of 1 million or more Christians and 5 million or more unreached tribal peoples, Hindu, unreligious, Muslim, and Buddhist peoples whom we refer to as the thumb people, THUMB. Now, how do we move the church to action? We call it 3D: discover, develop, and deploy. So what is discover? In Discover, we engage believers to discover God's heart for the nations. Through one-on-one discipleship, small group studies, and large group trainings, we guide Christians around the world into a biblical understanding of God's mission, opening their eyes to the proximity of the unreached and ways they can be involved in advancing the gospel to their neighbors. So discover. Secondly, develop. We equip believers to develop their role in God's global mission. In concert with our partners, we educate and coach people in practical ways to reach the nations by praying, sending, welcoming the strangers among them, mobilizing and going with a focus on unreached people. We also provide training and support raising, the number one barrier to mission sending. So discover, develop, and then deploy. Deploy, we connect believers with opportunities to deploy their gifts in accomplishing God's mission. Our ultimate goal, multiplying mission movements, requires many different roles, and it's clear from Scripture that God has a vital part for everyone to play. Now, who do we mobilize in the church? Well, we focus on students and young adults, families, and leaders in multi-generational churches, college-age students and young professionals. We disciple students and young adults to orient their lives around God's mission, equipping them in cross-cultural evangelism and connecting them to indigenous mission agencies. We like to say college students are the most recruitable, trainable, and sendable people on the planet. families. We raise up Great Commission families by equipping parents and churches with the vision and resources to disciple their children toward God's global mission. 1/3 of the world's population is under the age of 18. By giving children and youth a global worldview, we're laying a foundation for the future of missions. And finally, leaders and churches. We fuel and serve national mobilization leaders and churches, helping them produce, prepare, and provide for indigenous missionaries. Our trainings, resources, and strategies support movements in 50 priority mission sending countries. And now Max is going to lead us into something even more that we can get excited about. Max?
Thank you, Dave. So what does mobilization look like in the real world? I'd like to invite our CMM East Asia regional leader, Steve. Now, we're not going to share his last name for security reasons, and he's going to introduce us to a couple of stories from our key Chinese national staff. So please welcome Steve.
Well, good evening. Tonight we have the incredible privilege of hearing from some of our national staff, two gals in particular, one named Sarah and another named Jane. Now, Sarah was our first Chinese national staff to join the CMM 4 years ago. And in this clip that you're about to see, we filmed last year in country, Sarah shares about her vision for mobilizing the Chinese church. Following Sarah's sharing, we then get to hear from Jane. Now, Jane's going to be sharing with us about a recent mobilization trip in which she led a local house church to the Tibetan mountain area near where our team in China lives. And in case you're not familiar, Tibetans are one of the most unreached people groups on earth, with, in some cases, only hundreds of known believers worldwide.
In 2016, I got back from Mongolia, and I always feel like God is calling me to reach the people who has no access to gospel, and I have a burden for this group of people. And yeah, as I'm praying for it, there's a vision that came to my mind. There's an ocean and filled with people drowning, and also there's people on the shore, but they turn their back to the people, so they do not see people in the ocean are drowning. So at that moment, I got really touched by this vision. I feel like, oh, this is like God is showing me this like Chinese churches, and I wanted to turn their back, and so they can see there's people who need Jesus, that we need to go and to tell them. So after this, I started to really share more about God's heart to Chinese churches, and it's just be a part of my habit, I guess.
In 2018, we had their pastor visit mountains, Tibetan area. And last year, this pastor invited us to take their leaders and a few undergraduate students to Tibetan again. They want to know where is the promised land God gave to them. So last year they have this trip, and also I teach the explore during this trip too. And this year they came again, and it came 16 people, and they have 1 week vision trip, and we visit the local workers, visit the temples and the Tibetan friends too. So after a week, some people back to their job, and 6 of them stayed for Tibetan student camp. So because there are so many people, like more students over our imaged, so their pastor took 4 people to come to mountains again in a week. So their church supportive a lot to serve this camp. And after this camp, they really see their church and the leaders see God gave me this place to them, and they want to mobilize and encourage more and more students and workers to this place. So they're still praying and hope they will have more people to visit mountains and send long-term workers.
Thank you, Steve. And of course, thank you so much, Sarah and Jane. Friends, Jane's story is being repeated not only across China, but across the world, with churches we're mobilizing in a similar fashion, and with leaders we're training in other parts of Asia, Africa, Latin America, as well as Europe, Russia, and right here in the US. And we begin to bring our program to a close here. I want you to hear from CMM board member Gail Clark and why she and her husband Taylor are so passionate about the Center for Mission Mobilization. Gail.
Thank you, Max. Hello to everyone. Like you, my husband Taylor and I have many invitations to give to Christian causes, and we want to be involved in the work that God's doing around the world, taking the gospel to the ends of the earth. And we think that the CMM's mission is doing just that in an incredibly strategic and unique way. It's strategic in that the CMM is connecting with believers across the world, training them to make disciples who make disciples right in their own countries. They also develop resources that help them to reach their communities in Asia and Africa and Latin America. The CMM is unique in that they just we don't see people doing it, taking this approach. We feel makes so much more sense to equip leaders like Jane and like Sarah in China, or Taraku, who is our Ethiopian partner, who lives and works among Somali Muslims and shares the gospel with his neighbors in their own countries. In fact, I felt so strongly about the CMM and what it's doing that in addition to our family's regular giving to the CMM, I joined the board to get more involved. I don't know of anything more strategic than the work of the Center for Mission Mobilization. I hope you will pray and consider becoming a partner with us to mobilize Christians throughout the world to reach the lost with the gospel. Max, what's next?
Thanks, Gail. Friends, I join Gail in saying we don't know how the Lord might be leading you, but we want to give you an opportunity to know about the strategic financial needs of this ministry and how you might be able to partner with us to reach the unreached. On the screen, you'll see 3 major strategic opportunities to give to. I want to invite our Executive Director, Dave Rothkar, back to fill you in on the details of each of these needs. Dave.
Thanks again, Max. So again, to give you an idea of where we are at financially, we have a $6.2 million budget, the majority of which is raised by our staff. 94% has already been funded. We only have 6% remaining. Our first project is the translation of multiple CMM tools, which are used globally to equip the church to embrace God's global mission. This opportunity seeks to raise $50,000 for 10 translation projects. Tools like you saw Jane reference, like our Explore booklet here. The Explore booklet talks about God's word, God's world, God's work. We have other tools like the God Ask, which helps individuals learn how to raise their personal support. The Big Story series, which helps to disciple families in God's mission. And ultimately, finally, there, the Fuel and the Flame, about how to mobilize and move young students and professionals into God's mission. Our second project is regional training events for leaders where they're equipped to lead mission movements in their own cultures, raising up their own missionaries from Asia, Africa, and Latin America to reach the unreached. This opportunity seeks to raise $175,000 for 10 regional leaders trainings. Our third project is the care of CMM staff who are ministering on the front lines in strategic countries. This project provides much needed personal care through marriage retreats, special seminars for kids, and conferences to help families recover and renew from the challenges of ministry, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. This project seeks to raise $150,000 to care for CMM global staff and partners. So again, to summarize, the first opportunity seeks to raise $50,000 for 10 translation projects. The second opportunity seeks to raise $175,000 for 10 regional leaders trainings. And the third project seeks to raise $150,000 to care for CMM global staff and partners. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Max, what else?
Thanks, Dave. On our website, mobilization.org, you can go to our Give link in the upper right-hand corner to that page and select Give to a Project to become a CMM partner in any of the opportunities just described. The page will appear, you ought to see a page here that will appear when you click on that Give link. Now, tomorrow morning, you should receive a follow-up email from this event with a link to the full recording of the special CMM Virtual Banquet Zoom call. And the board members who invited you to this special event or a member of our CMM staff will follow up to answer any questions you may have. Again, thank you for investing your evening with us to learn about this strategic and unique ministry. We hope the Lord leads you to join us to mobilize the global church in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, the 80% that Dave was talking about, to raise up missionaries to reach those furthest from the gospel. Blessings to all of you.